是。
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I am your host, Buddy Kunana. Now, in this show, we talk about everything under the sun. And tonight, we go back to our advocacy, which is environment. And specifically, the ongoing controversy over genetically modified organisms. Tonight's show, you're also going to learn about an organization called Greenpeace, which is spearheading the way in protecting our natural resources and safeguarding our environment. And joining us to talk about Greenpeace and GMOs is the program manager of Greenpeace Philippines, Ms. Bo Bacongis.
Yes.
Good evening, Bo, and welcome to Philippines Uncut.
Good evening, Buddy.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm a big fan of Greenpeace, actually, and so I'm very glad that you're here on the show today, because this is something I want to talk. I want to talk about not just GMOs, because I've done several shows on GMOs, but I want to talk about Greenpeace. Okay, let's start with yourself. Who is Bo Bacongis?
Well, I've been with the environmental movement since the 1990s. But I started working with Greenpeace since 2000. So I actually started the genetic engineering campaign of Greenpeace here in the Philippines.
Yes.
And then I went on to be a toxics campaigner, looking at pollution issues. And now I'm the program manager for Greenpeace.
What is your academic background?
I came from a science background. So I graduated with a degree in biology from the Ateneo de Davao University and took up my master's course at the Ateneo de Manila University.
Master's in?
Biology as well.
Oh, okay, in Katipunan,
Ateneo.
in Loyola Heights.
Yes.
Okay, now what brought you to let's say, environment issues and protecting our natural resources?
Well, I grew up in Mindanao, and particularly in Bukidnon, and I had the environment as my playground. It was where I learned about life. So, having that environment around me made me be convinced that this is where I want to go. Environmental work is something that is very close to me.
Yes, and as we know in Mindanao, like other parts of the Philippines, a lot of environmental degradation going on there, deforestation. Did that somehow, your exposure to your life in Mindanao, did that somehow bring you towards this advocacy as well?
Well, it's more the exposure to the beauty of Mindanao rather than the destruction.
Yeah.
It is only in my later years that I started looking at how the development in Mindanao has gone to a development path that
Yes.
is not compatible with how the natural ecosystems really work.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about Greenpeace. What is Greenpeace exactly?
Well, Greenpeace is an environmental organization. We started as a peace organization when in 1971 a group of men and women tried to stop nuclear testing. Most of the people who were involved were actually either dodging the the drafting from the Vietnam
Yeah.
War,
Yes.
or they really opposed war. So many of them just wanted to do something about it. And they tried to stop a nuclear bomb testing in Chitka, Alaska, by taking a boat and sailing it into the test site to prevent the detonation of the nuclear
To put themselves
weapon.
in harm's way.
Yes.
To force the test to stop.
Yes.
Okay.
And although they were unable to stop the testing, when they returned to land, they found out that they were not actually, they actually didn't fail in their mission, because on land, people were talking about what they did. And they were able to generate a wave of conversations on environmental protection and stopping nuclear war and, all these things.
Were they called Greenpeace already back then? Or I mean, like, how did the name Greenpeace come into being?
Well, it really was just, people having, it started with Don't Make a Wave Foundation, a committee.
Okay.
And then, well, the wave referring to the ripples from, or the waves that is created when you detonate a nuclear bomb. And then through the years, they started talking about, who we really are, and it was just a conversation of maybe we're green and maybe we also, advocate for peace. So why not put it together and make Greenpeace? So that's how it started.
How big is Greenpeace now? I mean, how big is the organization? In how many countries is this, are the activities found? And where is the headquarters of Greenpeace?
Well, Greenpeace has grown through the years. We started in 1971 in the Americas, in the United States and Canada. And now we're in 40 countries.
Wow.
We have, and our international headquarters is in the Netherlands.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
In the in Southeast Asia,
Yes.
where our office belongs. Our headquarters is in Thailand, in Bangkok. But we have an office here in the Philippines.
I said I'm not surprised that it's based in the Netherlands, because Greenpeace has had that reputation of being a little left of center, somewhat, and Netherlands is the home of many left of center and leftist organizations. But I mean, Greenpeace does have that reputation. Comments about this reputation of Greenpeace?
Well, they see us, a lot of people think, we're radical, or brand us as radical or militant and all that. But Greenpeace is a non-violent organization. We use creative, non-violent direct confrontation to expose problems and to find solutions.
Has it been effective, this non-violent direct confrontation approach?
Yes, I think so, because through this has been our core principle since we began as an organization, and I think we got the respect of even companies that we, sometimes that we target, because they know when we work with them, and they see that we're actually sincere in what we're doing. So in fact, we've had a number of companies that tried to. That we've targeted before, and now they're starting to work with us on, changing the way they work.
Okay. What do you mean by non-violent direct confrontation? Give us some examples of this. Aside from the ship going to the nuclear test site, what are the other examples?
Well, that is one clear example.
That's one clear example for sure.
And some direct actions that we've done, for example, is plugging discharge pipes that's been dumping toxic chemicals into the water.
Plugging them
so that they're no longer discharging. or even just bearing witness to an environmental crime, because when you bear, this came from a Quaker tradition where in the Quakers would go to where a crime is committed and
Yes.
witness it.
Yes. And Quakers
so-
are very peaceful,
Yes.
non-confrontational as well.
So that
like the Amish. Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
these are the beginnings of Greenpeace actually, and that tradition continues to this day. So now, like, even when you say it's just a banner that we hang,
Yes.
it's really drawing attention to an issue where you in ordinary cases where
Would be
ordinary
overlooked.
protests,
Yes.
they will not be not no attention or very little attention will be given.
In that sense, there's also a bit of grandstanding, a little bit of theatrics as well. I mean, I saw in the video that we showed, that's actually your official Greenpeace video. There were some people chained to farm vehicles. I think what was that? I think you guys were protesting GMOs here, which we're going to get into soon.
When we do nonviolent direct action,
Yeah.
it's really the purpose is really to stop an environmental crime from happening. When you in the video, what you saw with some people chaining themselves to something was really to stop big heavy equipment from cutting down forests.
Yes, yes.
So,
yeah. So it was
it's
about
really
forestry, not
Yes.
and not logging. It was about logging,
Yes.
not about GMOs.
It was really to stop an environmental crime from happening.
Don't get me wrong. When I say about grandstanding and theatrics, sometimes that is necessary because sometimes, to jolt the public into awareness, you have to do something dramatic. I mean, otherwise, people will not take notice. So, I mean, I'm totally with you in that aspect. Okay, let's talk about Greenpeace Overseas, the international organization in the Philippines. What is the relationship between your organization here in the Philippines, which is a Philippine NGO, right?
Yes.
And Greenpeace International?
Yes. Well, Greenpeace is part of that global organization.
Yeah.
And when we work, we try to work with the whole organization. So when we choose issues to work on, we usually choose global issues because we believe that when we work together as a global community, we will have bigger results. There are issues that need global action, such as climate change. You cannot solve it by a single country alone.
For sure.
So you need everybody's help, all the countries helping each other. And that's why when we choose issues, we work together as different offices in different parts of the world on one issue.
No, but structurally, this is a direct, Greenpeace Philippines has direct contact really with Greenpeace in the Netherlands.
Yes.
You also receive policy directives from there which you have to follow. Does it follow some sort of strict partnership in that sense?
Yes and no. Yes, because there are certain aspects that we need to, be very strict about, especially in relation to our core principles. But in terms of how we operate at the country level,
You have some
we
sort
have
of
some
autonomy.
flexibility. Yes.
Okay. What are the core principles? Quickly, the mission and vision. What's the exact mission and vision of Greenpeace?
Well, Greenpeace is, in summary,
Yep.
the vision and mission of Greenpeace is really to participate in protecting the planet. We use nonviolent direct action. We in our operations, in our work,
Okay.
and we also work as a global community. We believe in internationalism, working together as an international community. And I think one of the important principles of Greenpeace as well is our economic independence. We don't take money from corporations,
Wow.
from governments and political parties because we know these are our targets most of the time. So
Yeah.
we really need to, protect our integrity.
So, madam, where
and
does
independence.
where does the funding come from? I saw your videos, and you had, in some of those videos, which are all local scenes, no? You had like high-speed rubber boats with even-road 200 horsepower engines, that kind of thing. And these things cost money, huh? Where does your funding come from?
Well, most of our 90% or more of our funding comes from individuals who support the cause. So this is from people like you people like ordinary people on the streets that come up to Greenpeace
Really?
and say, I want to help, and here's my money. I want to give
Wow.
money to help you,
How about
in your
fundraising?
work.
Do you guys do fundraising?
We
as
do
well?
fundraising, but again, it's mostly from individuals. Sometimes we get money from foundations, but still, even with foundations, we are very careful that we choose foundations that are not corporate or government related.
Yes. Does Greenpeace suffer from a funding problem? I mean, okay, fine. Every foundation and every NGO always wants more funds. I mean, that makes that fuels the operation, that makes expansion possible. But is Greenpeace comfortable in the funding department, or are you guys always looking for more funds from donors?
Of course, we're always looking for additional support
Yes.
for our campaigns because there is just a huge problem we have with regards environmental issues.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work that needs to happen. So we always appreciate the support of ordinary citizens to help provide financial support for our campaigns.
Okay. Last question about Greenpeace. What are the usual criticisms about Greenpeace that you get from? I assume when you go against corporations, you go against multinationals and governments, you will incur or acquire your own, a good fare of a good number of enemies
Yes.
or critics. So, what are the usual criticisms of Greenpeace?
Well, one is that we're European-based organization, European-led. Obviously, I'm not European. The people the staff in the Philippines are all Filipinos.
How about funding? They say that you're awash in money.
That somebody's paying for all the PR
an
work
interest
that
group
we're
is
doing.
behind you or something like that. No.
Yes, sometimes that we're being supported by communists and sometimes by business. So
Well, you're being based in the Netherlands doesn't help. No, kidding aside. Okay. Let's get down now to the main issue, which is GMOs. Okay. What are genetically modified organisms?
Well, GMOs are crops or plants or animals where a particular gene with a specific trait is inserted genetically engineered into the plant or the animal, so that the traits of the particular trait that was inserted would be revealed. So that, for example, in a BT corn plant, for example, the gene of a bacterium called Bacillus thuringiensis,
Okay.
that is supposed to what do you call this? That's supposed to give out a pesticidal quality.
Okay.
Is inserted
into the
corn,
into the genetic makeup
genes
of the corn. Okay.
so that the corn itself is producing the toxin, and
Wow.
then if there are insect pests that attack the corn, then in scientific terms it doesn't get, it's supposedly resistant to
the
pests.
insects. It will kill the insects.
Yes.
But I mean, so you're saying is that the corn has infused inside in it some sort of
The
toxin,
BT toxin.
a BT toxin. But isn't that BT toxin harmful to humans as well? I mean, if it can kill insects, then I wouldn't want to eat anything that can kill something else. No.
Well, what we're saying is that it's too early to say that it's safe. Because we believe in the precautionary principle, we think that if you don't know yet what this organism is going to do when it is released into the environment, then don't put it out.
Sure.
Keep it in the laboratory
sure.
until you know exactly what it's going to do. What is happening now is that without enough safety tests, risk assessments, these crops are already being field tested and being released into the environment. The problem is, if you have organisms, these are living creatures, and when you release them into the environment, they are bound to reproduce, multiply, and it will be, if there's something negative that happens,
Then
you
it'll
won't
spread.
be able to recall it.
Yes, yes.
Unlike products that you manufacture in factories, you will be able to recall
Product
it.
recall, like milk or
Yes.
I don't know, cookies or whatever.
Yes.
No? Yeah.
But with living organisms, you can't do that.
For sure. And speaking as a layperson and as a consumer, if something is in the food that actually can kill an insect, as I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't want to eat that. I mean, in just the name, Bt toxin, the word toxin. I mean, I don't know any person who, in his or her right mind, would want to consume a toxin. No?
Yes. Well, the argument there of the opposing side is that Bt toxin is even used in organic agriculture. They use it as a spray in organic agriculture to protect crops. However, if when you our argument is that when you insert it into a living organism, in a gene, you don't know how it's going to react with the other processes of the plant.
For sure. And can you say that corn is still corn? I mean, once you've monkeyed around with its genetic makeup, right? I mean, can you still say that is corn as we know it?
Precisely.
It could be a different species already.
Precisely, and that is why we keep arguing that the Bt corn is not the same as is not substantially equivalent to a regular corn.
For sure, for sure. Okay, I know for a fact that a lot of people pushing GMOs are saying that this is the key to solving world hunger because we have an explosive population and we need to feed them, yadida, yadida, yadida. What is your reaction to that?
Well, the problem of hunger cannot be addressed by one crop alone. You need people to have access. The problem is really access to food. It's not the amount of food. You have a lot of food. There is enough food to feed the world. The thing is, people don't have access, especially those in very poor areas, do not have proper access to food. And that's the problem with the solution that they are pushing, which is GMOs.
Yes, yes. And as you see, there is proof coming out that the GMOs are harmful to other organisms. And I understand that even the land is somehow affected as well. I mean, once GMO crops are planted in a certain area, it's very hard for that area to go back to being planted with non-GMO crops.
Well, there are already studies coming out. We don't have a lot of studies yet because this is a new technology. Even if it's 20 years, it's still new because if you compare it to evolution of a crop, you know. There are already studies coming out that say it's harmful to other insects, beneficial insects especially, beneficial microorganisms in the soil. But there's not a lot of, some of the industry is trying to suppress these studies, or they are, branding those scientists that do these studies as, unscientific, and
or organizations like yours saying, accusing you guys that you guys are quote unquote holding back science, as one newspaper columnist so articulately put it.
For the record, Greenpeace actually has a science unit that looks at all our scientific arguments, to make sure that they are scientifically sound, and we don't just come out with all these remarks or statements that have no basis at all.
Okay. Quickly now, before we pause for a break, people are saying that pro-GMO people are saying, like what we're doing, what GMOs are, is actually just the natural evolution of things. Like I mean, it happened in evolution as a species developed, and now scientists have actually done this, and this is all they're doing. It's actually evolution, but man-made evolution. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I wouldn't call it evolution if it's man-made. In a natural environment, the different species, the different organisms in the ecology and in the ecosystem will have an interaction. But in the case of GMOs, you are forcing genes into a plant or an animal. That is not evolution.
Evolution is natural. What they're doing now, according to what Greenpeace is saying and what the anti-GMO people are saying, is this is something totally unnatural. I said man-made, unnatural, and forced. No?
Yes.
And it's an aberration of nature.
Yes.
It wouldn't happen if it weren't conducted in a test tube in some lab somewhere.
Right.
All right. Bo, we have to pause for a break, but guys, don't go away because more of GMOs and green peas when Philippines Uncut returns. Philippines Uncut. I'm your host, Buddy Kunana. Tonight's topic is GMOs and green peas. And still here to talk about this issue is Bo Bacongis, and she's the program manager of Greenpeace Philippines. Welcome back to our second segment, Bo. And
Thank you.
interesting talk we had about GMOs in general and how GMOs are created, why they are created, and their possible effect on the environment, on consumers like me and you, on other species, etc., etc. Now, okay, quickly, let's talk about why do people, what is the business aspect behind GMOs? I mean, why are GMOs created in the first place? What is the need? I mean, is there, I'm sure, there's a lot of R&D that goes into this, and at the end of the R&D, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So, well, from a business perspective, what does this mean to companies that are making these GMO corn, GMO rice, whatever?
What we see is that this is a way to control food production, food production. The companies that make this, like Monsanto, there are very few of them who are companies that develop the seeds, the technology, and then they market it to farmers directly, perhaps directly to farmers in some cases,
Yes.
or to other smaller seed companies. Especially local companies. And then when you plant the seed, you also pay for a royalty for using the seeds. And you cannot plant the seed over and over again. Like traditionally, our farmers would
Yes.
save their seeds and then look at which, save some of the best seeds they have and plant it again. So this is not possible with this kind of technology. So you have to pay every time you want to plant, you have to pay for the seeds,
Yes.
including royalties. It's a very expensive way of, producing food.
So it really locks down the farmers to one source of seeds. I mean, to get it from one source, from one company that supplies this. No?
Yes.
And as we mentioned earlier, we said that land that has been planted with GMO crops, frequently, it's very difficult to go back to non-GMO crops. Apparently, the
Yes.
herbicides have now gone in the soil, and so, like it or not, the poor farmer has no choice anymore.
Yes, and in cases of BT cotton, for example, in India,
Yeah.
farmers are now committing suicide because they're into debt. They're heavily into debt from patronizing the seeds, these kinds of seeds, and chemicals. Because usually it comes with a package of seeds and chemicals.
Yes. Why seeds and chemicals? Because this is a process for planting the GMO seeds. No.
Yes.
Seeds and chemicals. There is.
They all come in a package, and you use, for example, a specific kind of chemical for this particular kind of seed.
Okay.
So that's how they package it, and many of the farmers, especially now in the U.S.,
Yes.
Which has gone big on GMOs, a lot of the farmers are now being sued by Monsanto and the other biotech companies for patent infringement and.
Imagine that, huh? I mean, whereas in days gone by, a seed is a seed, So
Yes.
so farmers could use seeds from anywhere, basically, and then no one
Right.
owns the seed. I mean, no one owns the patent for the seed. So I mean, this is really disturbing. Now, okay, you mentioned a company, Monsanto, and I've done a little research on Monsanto, and apparently Monsanto has gained the dubious reputation of being the most hated company in the world. So, what are the other? And this is a top GMO company. They engineer GMO seeds and crops. What are the other companies aside from Monsanto?
You have Syngenta,
Syngenta, okay.
and then you have Pioneer Hybrid,
Okay.
Cargill is also a seed company.
Okay. So they're all GMO companies. These companies mentioned Cargill, Syngenta,
They
Monsanto,
have,
and the other one, Pure
Pioneer Hybrid.
Pioneer Hybrid. Are these American companies?
Monsanto is.
Okay.
Syngenta is, I think, Swiss.
Okay.
Cargill, I think, is American.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Pioneer Hybrid.
How widespread are GMO crops in the world? I mean, are they planted in many places around the planet? I mean, where are the concentration of GMO crops?
Well, the biggest GMO producers are the U.S. and Canada, and then Brazil.
Okay.
But if you look at it at the global level, these are very few countries that are planting GMOs. In Europe and other countries, there are already particular bans on, there are bans on the use of GM seeds.
Yes, yes. I understand in Europe, has I mean, many countries in Europe have banned GMOs completely.
Yes,
and
and also they have labeling laws.
Labeling laws, okay.
Which also is one step to prevent, the use of GMOs in food.
Okay. Now it's interesting because earlier you said that there is no proof yet. I mean, you're still waiting for proof if these are safe, if GMOs are safe for human consumption, safe for the environment. And that statement presupposes that there is no. I mean, the scientific testing still needs to be done to see whether they are in fact harmful or safe for us, no? But how come countries like Germany and I think France, etc., how come they've actually banned GMOs completely, even without these proper testings? How come?
Well, what we're looking at now is using the precautionary principle as a core principle in decision making, and with the precautionary principle, it's a don't do it if you don't know.
Better safe than sorry.
Yes, yes. Prevention is better than cure.
An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure.
Yes.
All right.
So that's the kind of framework that they are working with.
Which is good. No,
yes, and that's the kind of framework we also want to push in the Philippines.
Now, this is okay. Let's go to the Philippines situation. I did some readings on GMOs, and apparently the Philippines also has a dubious distinction as being one of the most GMO-friendly countries in Asia. Now, why is that? Do you agree? Do you agree? I mean, are these statistics correct when people say that?
Well, if you look
facts correct?
If you look at government policy, then we are.
Yeah.
Although there are groups, different organizations, consumer groups that are trying to oppose and get government to come up with better policies that actually does not allow GMOs.
No, but it's strange because even with this precautionary principle, better safe than sorry, it's alarming that, based on this paper which came from you guys, it says that a total of 44 GMO applications have been approved by the Philippine government. 44 have been approved. So among these, I mean, obviously,
there's a lot of corn.
I mean, I think almost all the corn we're eating now is GMO here in the Philippines.
Widespread use of GMO corn.
I mean, I don't eat corn here anymore. I've stopped eating corn because of
Yeah, and then there are applications for GM papaya, GM rice, GM eggplant, and potato, cotton, and all these.
Which brings us to your latest legal battle with proponents of pro-GMO groups, which is BT eggplant or GMO eggplant, GMO talong. Tell us about this case.
Well, this is a very interesting case. We have been campaigning to stop the field trials of BT eggplant in the country. And despite that, there were some BT trials that happened. And what we did was, with the writ of kalikasan, we decided to file a case before the Supreme Court to stop more field trials from happening of BT eggplant. And during the case, the Supreme Court referred the case to the Court of Appeals for hearings. I guess because, for good reason, I guess because they didn't understand quite a lot about the technology and
people
how,
do.
yes, what it is,
Sure,
in fact.
sure.
So the case was brought to the Court of Appeals, and then there were hearings. What the Court of Appeals did was gather experts from both sides. So you have 4 scientists from the industry side, or the groups that were trying to do the testing, and then we had 3 scientists from the Greenpeace side, along with the farmers.
Okay. And what was the result? What was the decision?
And the Court of Appeals actually decided in our favor.
Good.
So they ordered the stoppage of more field trials until safety tests have been done.
The precautionary principle.
Yes, and what was interesting was in the hearings itself, I was present in all those hearings.
Yes.
It came out from their own scientists, from the industry scientists, that
Yes.
they have not done safety tests. They admitted to not having done safety tests.
And already they wanted to run this thing, do field trials. Okay.
Although some of their scientists were saying that
Yeah.
they've done, the products are safe, the crops are safe, but one of their colleagues was saying, no, we have not done safety
How
tests.
irresponsible, no? So, and as you said, when these things are released out there, then it's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak.
There's a nice story around that during the hearing that I wanted to share. One of the justices, the presiding justice, Justice Dikdikan, actually understood what we were talking about when we talked about pollination, cross-contamination, because he said his wife was a beekeeper. So when we showed the evidence that, okay, they were saying that oh, we put in enough measures,
Yeah.
safety measures to make sure there is no contamination, there's no cross-pollination. And then we showed images of the field trial sites where you only have like barbed wires or chicken wires. And the justice said, it's not possible,
How can you stop the bees?
the bees from crossing over.
Unless you set up some sort of sealed
Yes.
enclosure where,
Precisely.
a hyperbaric chamber or something like that.
Right.
Okay, so you were against the field trials because of the possible contamination. It could have resulted in the possible contamination to the surrounding areas.
Yes.
Because I mean, as you said, the only thing that was separating the field trial areas from other areas was barbed wire.
Yes.
So and as anyone who's taken basic biology will know, or that there's cross pollination, seeds can be carried by the wind and all that, and hence the count. Now, how come contamination is such an issue? What dangers could there be? I mean, if GMO seeds spread to other areas, the principal Greenpeace stand is that you guys are not sure what the effect this will have on let's say other areas.
Yes. And we still are not sure
Yeah.
to this time what it's going to do when it contaminates all the other crops.
Yeah.
One issue is the issue on what do you call this? The impacts on the diversity of the
Yes.
crops.
Okay.
There is a chance, there is a possibility that it would wipe out some of the indigenous species or the indigenous varieties of maybe the BT eggplant.
Yes. Now, Bo, tell me, who were the respondents in this case? Who were the groups carrying out the field trials?
Well, the case was against UPLB Foundation, UPLB, and the ISAAA.
International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-Biotech Applications Southeast Asia Center. Very long name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And finally, the third party was?
The Biotech Coalition of the Philippines.
Yes,
was
and
yeah.
the University of the Philippines Mindanao Foundation.
Yes. Well, UP Mindanao. I think in the course of the hearings, they they just said, okay, we're not part of this case. Actually.
Okay. Oh, really?
So it was UPLB,
and this is
FI,
ISAAA and
ISAAA. Yes.
Okay. Now, my question is, how come these foundations were doing the trials? Shouldn't it have been the companies that want to market these GMO seeds and crops here in the Philippines? Should it be them to do the field trials? Why go through foundations?
Well, they themselves were doing the actual testing. It was not the seed companies or like Monsanto.
Why?
Well, to us in the Philippines, maybe in the Philippines, they need to go through some of the national organizations so that it doesn't appear like a foreign, entity driving their agenda, their economic agenda into the Philippines. So they're using local scientists and local research institutions to maybe to give to have a foothold into Philippine, economic, the economic landscape.
It's frightening because a lot of these big companies are American, and again, statistics show. I mean, the facts show that the Philippines is now the USA's 15th largest export market for agricultural products, the 3rd largest market for soybean meal, 4th largest for wheat. I mean, there really is a lot of American interest and obviously an American agenda in pushing these biotech companies.
Yes, in fact, in the Court of Appeals hearing, a USDA official was present.
Wow.
And we were even being harassed by this USDA official. Like he would come up to us and yell at us and
really
and say you don't know anything, so. It's nothing to us.
Now, how did you know he was a USDA official? He identified himself
he
attached to the embassy, maybe?
He had a card that he gave around.
Imagine that. Well, it just goes to show the interest that America has. I mean, obviously we are, this country could be a foothold in Asia for their products, and because I understand in other countries, in Thailand, GMO companies have not been successful coming in China as well, not successful going in Japan also.
In Thailand, our colleagues in Thailand actually were able to successfully stop field trials of BT papaya.
Okay.
So now they have legislation. Well, they have laws against certain types of GM crops.
Okay, let's talk about the situation in the Philippines. Back to the Philippines. So in the Philippines, corn is already here.
Yes.
GMO corn is already here. There's nothing we can do about it. We've lost that fight. You guys have lost the GMO corn fight. So are there other GMO crops already being planted? No. At the moment, it's just corn.
No, just on a commercial level, it's only corn.
All right. And so you guys have successfully stymied the field trials of BT eggplant, BT talong or GMO eggplant for now.
Yes.
Are you optimistic that this will hold?
Well, we hope it will hold.
Realistically.
Because we don't know how the justices will decide.
Well, I hope they watch this show. And then let's talk about one more GMO crop that's being pushed here very, very strongly. This is golden rice.
Yes.
Now, why do they call it golden rice?
Golden rice comes from is a genetically engineered variety of rice where the vitamin A levels are increased, supposedly to address vitamin A deficiency.
Yes.
So these are now on field trials in the Philippines.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so how come Greenpeace was not able to stop that? Did you try? I mean, you guys do a campaign?
Yes, we're working. In fact, this was when I first started as a genetic engineering campaigner. This was one of the first issues that I worked on, golden rice, where we exposed, we were saying that the levels of vitamin A in the golden rice at that time was very low, and you would need 9 kilos of rice to get your daily requirement, vitamin A requirement.
Well, that's a lot of rice.
Yes. So the company, the seed company, actually went back and tried to went back to the laboratory and tried to increase the level of vitamin A in the rice.
Are you guys doing something to stop these field trials of golden rice? I mean, what legal actions are you guys doing, if ever, if any?
Right now, there's no legal action that has been taken.
All right.
But we're working also with other groups to stop golden rice. So we're going around and having conversations with farmers and consumer groups to get them to join us in opposing golden rice.
What has been the response from the farmers? I mean, have you been successful in raising and opening their eyes to the problems of golden rice and the dangers, possible dangers and risks?
There are farmer groups that strongly oppose golden rice. In fact, recently, I think last month or 2 months ago, a farmer group tried to uproot some field trial, golden rice field trials. Although they're accusing us as being the leaders of that direct action.
Worst case scenario, how long do we have to wait until this golden rice hits the market and then we all start eating this golden rice? Worst case scenario.
Well, they
Within a
can't
year?
maybe not, because they can't do they can't put it out in the market if there are no food safety tests, and that has not yet been done. And we're working hard with talking to mothers and other groups.
Food safety tests. Who conducts these food safety tests?
They will.
Who's they?
The IRRI, the International Rice Research Institute.
And the Bureau of Plant Industry, maybe, or BFAR, or
yes. So they're looking at getting the food safety tests done, so that they can commercially sell golden rice. But right now there's a lot of opposition. Mothers have come out saying we don't want golden rice. This is not the best way to deal with vitamin A deficiency or other mineral deficiency issues. And there are other better ways, they said.
Yes. So, well, are you guys optimistic in Greenpeace about stopping golden rice? You think it's still possible at this stage when they're already doing field trials?
We strongly think that it is still possible. While it's not yet, there have been no food safety tests done, we're still very optimistic that we will be able to stop it.
Yes. Now, Bo, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. Would you like to say something to the audience before we bid auf Wiedersehen?
Well, Greenpeace needs the support that for our work. We need the support to stop all these environmental crimes from happening. And if people want to volunteer, they can join us, and they can visit our website. It's www.greenpeace.org.ph. And they can look at all the issues. If they want to learn about the different issues that Greenpeace is working on, they can go online. And they can also engage us in a conversation through our social networks. So I am inviting the Filipinos to come, be a member of Greenpeace, support our work, and join us in a conversation.
Thank you very much, Bo. Good luck to you guys. You guys have your work cut out for you. And definitely you are going up against huge interest groups here, and you'll definitely need all the help you can get.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks. So guys, I hope you enjoyed our talk today about Greenpeace and GMOs. Join us again next week as we talk about more Greenpeace activities here on Philippines Uncut, where we talk about what matters to you, because you guys matter the most. I'll see you next week. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I am your host, Buddy Kunana. Now, in this show, we talk about everything under the sun. And tonight, we go back to our advocacy, which is environment. And specifically, the ongoing controversy over genetically modified organisms. Tonight's show, you're also going to learn about an organization called Greenpeace, which is spearheading the way in protecting our natural resources and safeguarding our environment. And joining us to talk about Greenpeace and GMOs is the program manager of Greenpeace Philippines, Ms. Bo Bakong.
Nuclear testing. Most of the people who were involved were actually either dodging the the drafting from the Vietnam War,
yes.
or they really opposed war. So many of them just wanted to do something about it. And they tried to stop a nuclear bomb testing in Chitka, Alaska, by taking a boat and sailing it into the test site to prevent the detonation of the nuclear weapon.
To put themselves in harm's way.
Yes.
To force the test to stop.
Yes.
Okay.
And although they were unable to stop the testing, when they returned to land, they found out that they were not actually, they actually didn't fail in their mission, because on land, people were talking about what they did. And they were able to generate a wave of conversations on environmental protection and stopping nuclear war and, all these things.
Were they called Greenpeace already back then? Or I mean, like, how did the name Greenpeace come into being?
Well, it really was just, people having, it started with Don't Make a Wave Foundation, a committee,
Okay.
Bukidnon, and I had the environment as my playground. It was where I learned about life. So, having that environment around me made me be convinced that this is where I want to go. Environmental work is something that is very close to me.
Yes, and as we know in Mindanao, I mean, like other parts of the Philippines, a lot of environmental degradation going on there, deforestation. Did that somehow, your exposure to your life in Mindanao, did that somehow bring you towards this advocacy as well?
Well, it's more the exposure to the beauty of Mindanao rather than the destruction.
Yeah.
It is only in my later years that I, started looking at how the development in Mindanao has gone to a development path that is not compatible with, how the natural ecosystems really work.
Yes, okay. Let's talk about Greenpeace. What is Greenpeace exactly?
Well, Greenpeace is an environmental organization. We started as a peace organization when in 1971, a group of men and women tried to stop...
Congis.
Yes.
Good evening, Bo, and welcome to Philippines Uncut.
Good evening, Buddy.
No, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm a big fan of Greenpeace, actually, and so I'm very glad that you're here on the show today, because this is something I want to talk. I want to talk about not just GMOs, because I've done several shows on GMOs, but I want to talk about Greenpeace. Okay, let's start with yourself. Who is Bo Bakongis?
Well, I've been with the environmental movement since the 1990s. So, but I started working with Greenpeace since 2000. So I actually started the genetic engineering campaign of Greenpeace here in the Philippines.
Yes.
And then I went on to be a toxics campaigner, looking at pollution issues, and now I'm the program manager for Greenpeace.
What is your academic background?
I came from a science background, so I graduated with a degree in biology from the Ateneo de Davao University and took up my master's course at the Ateneo de Manila University.
Master's in?
Biology as well.
Oh, okay, in Katipunan,
Ateneo.
in Loyola Heights.
Yes.
Okay, now what brought you to let's say, environment issues and protecting our natural resources?
Well, I grew up in Mindanao, and particularly in